Now, today is International Epilepsy Day, with over 45,000 people living with epilepsy in Ireland. Awareness and understanding of the condition has never been more important. I'm joined this morning by Tommy Cassidy from Meelick, who has lived with epilepsy since childhood. And also with us is Paddy McGeoghegan, Advocacy and Communications Manager with Epilepsy Ireland. And a good morning to both of you, and thanks for joining us on the show. Tommy's in studio with me and Paddy is on the line. And Tommy, you've been living with epilepsy since I think you were about 5 years old. So this is very much, correct, you don't really remember a life without it, I guess. Can you take us back to when you were first diagnosed and what was growing up with epilepsy like for you?
Well, I know that necessarily around maybe between 5 and 7 years of age, I got a bit conscious of it, such. But being honest about it, as a child, I didn't really know what was actually happening. All I knew necessarily that every now and then when I'd be with my friends or I'd be on the road playing or whatever it might be, I might find myself in a situation where I'd have a small little bit of an episode. And didn't understand what it was, and from there then as I developed and as I grew up, and so forth, then various different things came into play as necessarily how to deal with it,
And epilepsy itself and seizures, Tommy, I know some people they can range. Some people can have mild seizures, some can have severe, it can depend from seizure to seizure. Mm-hmm. What was it like for you? For
myself, it was necessarily started off with a thing, as I understood it at the time, we called it a petit mal situation, where I kind of more or less went into a kind of a dream. I disappear for a number of moments and then I come back, not realising that it was actually happening to me.
So are you... does your mind kind of go blank? Are you aware of what's happening? Is everything just black? Or
in the earlier stages, no, I didn't know it was actually coming on. It would just hit me, But then necessarily as I grew older and went into what's called the grand mal situation, then definitely I was able to get necessarily what you call these signs or these signals where an epileptic attack was coming on.
You've been living with this for pretty much all your life, if you don't mind me mentioning your age now. You're 71 and you're looking well for it too.
Thank you so much.
What does day-to-day life with epilepsy look like for you? And is it better to live with it now, Tommy, than it was back when you were a young lad? Is there more understanding of how to deal with it now?
Definitely, as such, because when I was growing up, for a long, long time, I didn't even understand that I had epilepsy. I just knew I had this condition.
Yeah.
But as the drugs became greater, I went into various drugs. I started off with a drug called phenobarbital. Now I'm on a drug called Keppra, and it's a very, very, it's a very liberating drug. It really helps me. The one thing that I could say to anybody is in relation to epilepsy is to learn to understand it.
Yeah, are there kind of misconceptions out there, do you find?
Oh, without a doubt, as such. I mean, for instance, when I was growing up, various sports that I wanted to do, it actually interfered with me actually doing them. I remember one time I wanted to join the St. Munchin's Boxing Club. So I never told my parents I joined it. The next thing, the word got back to my parents that I joined the boxing club. And of course,
they were surprised to say the least.
Yeah, I was brought into the doctor, JJ Ryan, and JJ says, Tommy, the digs to your head now are not going to do your condition much good, Yeah. But I remember I cried over that because of the fact that, I just wanted to be like every other kid.
That is totally understandable, but has that reared its head, that kind of compromise scenario for you in other aspects of your life? Has it caused any compromises or issues, be it when you're working or in social life or education, whatever?
As I look back over it, definitely, such there was times when you wouldn't speak about it, right? Because there was this stigma around it, and it was just lack of understanding. But I'll be honest about it. I had a great family, and I had great friends around me, and even though they themselves didn't fully understand it, because it was an evolving thing, understanding epilepsy, at the same time they were very empathetic towards me, and they worked with me, and in lots of cases they didn't treat me differently. But I did find necessarily employment was a different ball again. When I went to get employment in various factories around Shannon or whatever it might be, it was an actual thing where I was blocked. I was blocked because of various reasons, because I was working went to Anco and I trained as a machinist. And the thing was, when I wanted to go on to that career to do that, the thing was insurance purposes came up, doctors' opinions came up. And like you said earlier on, epilepsy is in different stages, and we're people that deal with it differently, we're in different levels. And because of that, you find yourself in a situation where some people may form an opinion, doctors included at the time, right? They're much better now.
Yeah, I guess I suppose people are more aware that there's different, as we mentioned earlier on, people who living with epilepsy, they can differ from person to person in terms of what types of seizures or the seriousness of them. It isn't just to tar everyone with the same brush kind of approach. And just to bring Paddy McGeoghegan from Epilepsy Ireland in. Paddy, I'm sure you've heard many stories like Tommy's. It's great to hear, at least in Tommy's case, he had friends, family members around him who offered a lot of empathy and support. Maybe others didn't have that. Over 45,000 people in Ireland living with epilepsy. It's nearly 1 in every 100 people. Why do you think awareness is still lacking?
I think it's probably, actually, first of all, obviously, Alan, thanks for having us on, and great thanks to Tommy there for sharing his own personal experience of living with epilepsy. But I think in terms of some of the misconceptions out there about epilepsy, it can be down to how individual it is and how it affects people quite differently. So I suppose it's important to say that up to 70% of people can actually become seizure-free whenever the right treatment for their individual epilepsy is identified. Unfortunately, for all 30% of people living with the condition, it will very much be a feature of their life. But what Tommy is doing there today in terms of sharing his own individual experience, speaking out about it, that's something that didn't necessarily happen decades ago. It was something that was hidden. But thankfully, things are changing, and we see the evidence of that through sort of public awareness surveys that we run year on year. A specific example of that, just Tommy mentioned the employment and kind of the misconceptions around epilepsy that are there. Now, in recent surveys that we've done, we found that 80% of the public did not see epilepsy as a barrier to the workforce. Now, that's a sea change in perception. Now, as an organisation, we're obviously focused on the 20%, but when we do take a step back, it does show awareness, understanding is increasing and stigma is falling. But, you know, we can't rest on our laurels, so much more to do.
Yeah, but that is an encouraging number. But even if people don't see it as a barrier to the workplace and they are more understanding, maybe they're still not knowledgeable enough, Paddy. Many people, I'm sure, wouldn't know what to do if they witnessed a seizure. What are the key first aid steps everyone should know?
So for International Epilepsy today, we're promoting 3 key words, and they are time, safe and stay. So you need to time the seizure. If it goes over 5 minutes, you need to call an ambulance. You need to keep the person safe during the seizure. That means if they're having a convulsive seizure where they might fall to the ground, you put something soft underneath their head. If they're in danger of hitting off a chair, for example, you move the chair, not the person. Another thing just to mention, Alan, as well, is you never put anything in a person's mouth during a seizure, and you never restrain them. 2 medical myths that are out there about seizure first aid that unfortunately we still have to talk about in order to dispel them. And then finally, you stay with the person throughout the seizure and shortly thereafter as they recover. As Tommy will be able to attest to, you often feel dazed, confused, absolutely exhausted after a seizure. So having someone there speaking gently to you, letting you know everything's going to be okay, can make a world of difference to a person as they recover. So those 3 key words again are time, safe and stay. And today for International Epilepsy Day, what we've done is actually release a new song promoting those 3 key words. I think you potentially have it there. Maybe you'll give it a play. But if you're not able, go to epilepsy.ie and have a listen. We're making no apologies about it. We want this song to be stuck in people's heads so they know how to correctly respond to a seizure. So do visit our website today and learn more.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll try and squeeze in a little bit of it. My thanks to Paddy McGeoghegan, Advocacy and Communications Manager with Epilepsy Ireland, and Tommy Cassidy, Meelick based, who thank you for sharing your story as well.